And because we're so embodied, it isn't, thank goodness it's not rocket science. I studied rocket science in college. Any woman can do it. You don't need courses, you don't need practice. You could deepen it that way, of course. But to just start and just begin, all it is an embodied clear yes and no and committing yourself to following that clear yes and clear no. Feminine boundaries are not, you don't need to spend 5 years in therapy figuring out your boundaries.
This next conversation is with Alanna Kaivalya, and she has a background in mythology and depth psychology. She's a best-selling author, and you'll hear her story. She talks about going for it and actually being very successful in her business and making a radical change in her life. And that radical change was to lean back and explore and experience and express feminine power. So we talk about what that means, how we each can cultivate and nurture our feminine energy, what women specifically who tend towards the feminine are looking for and need in a flourishing relationship. And what was also quite a blast is we also applied it all to business. What does it take to be an entrepreneur today with the technology and the opportunities that exist where we can be satisfied, where we can be in our feminine and have wonderful, beautiful, impactful businesses. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's get to it. And yes, the author of The Way of the Satisfied Woman. Enjoy. Oh my goodness, we're off to a good start. We've got guitars in the background, as we noted,
Yep.
and fun glasses.
Crystals, jewelry, all of the things, stars aligning right from the beginning.
Well, feminine loves her beauty and radiance. So I'm looking forward to being that with you today.
Absolutely.
I do want to just start by saying thank you for writing this book.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
starting your podcast, which I am devouring and appreciating. Thank you for having the courage to shift gears in your life, which is where I wanted to start. I mean, I'm so curious, Alanna, you clearly are going all in on the messenger of reclaiming feminine power. And that was a shift from a career you had, and maybe even a way of being from how I've heard you tell the story before. So, talk about the transition from owning a business, selling it, being who you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for naming those things. And I can't tell you what it means to hear another woman affirm the work and resonating with it. So I really appreciate that. That's absolutely what I'm here for. And yeah, I'll give you kind of a nutshell version. I spent a little over 20 years in the field of yoga and spirituality and did the in-person yoga teaching for a long time. I used to craft yoga teacher trainings for some of the largest yoga studios in the country. I taught worldwide workshops and trainings and all that stuff. It was a good time, but it was never very lucrative. And I felt passionate about the work enough to want to put it out there in a meaningful way and was very much an early adopter of all things internet. I was the first yoga teacher ever to have a podcast. I was the first person to ever have a yoga teacher training online starting in 2015, way before it was cool, and have just always recognized the power of the internet and things like podcasting as a way to neutralize the playing field of whatever work, education, things we want to get out there. So I've tried to do that consistently throughout my life. But I built a big business in the way that I was trained in this culture to do. Success at all costs, go as far as you can, grow, 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 be cutthroat about it, put down the competition, all of that. And it worked. For all intents and purposes, I had a really successful multi seven figure business. And at my peak, I was managing 24 people. I was making all of the decisions. I was leading all of the meetings. I was trying to run the whole show and be the leader, the teacher, the decision maker. And I was married to a guy who looked good on paper and was not the right person for me. And all that is to say that I did what the culture and what I thought I was supposed to do in terms of being a successful person. And what I recognized was that made me carry the mask of the masculine far too much and in a far too burdensome way. And it burnt me out. I became overwhelmed, and it was an incredibly inauthentic way to live because I wasn't living from my center. I was never having free time to be myself. I think the thing that made me recognize that the way that I was living wasn't true to me was the fact that I had built that business on things that I had created. So by the time I launched my business in 2015, I'd already written, I think at that point, 3 books. I created my educational system. I used to be a singer in the yoga world and created a few albums. But once I started the business, I never created anything again because I was in the masculine running the business. I was the powerhouse. I was the decision maker. I was the leader. I was the go to. And that's even how the person that I married saw me. And it turns out that he wasn't in his masculine, he was in his feminine. And so I ended up basically playing mommy to him for a while. And all the while I got my PhD in mythology and psychology. I was studying world religion, Eastern mysticism, and all of these things have wisdom around masculine and feminine, as does psychology. And I started realizing that this was really the rift that I was feeling on the inside. This was how I could name my internal discomfort, right? Because externally, I looked like I was doing great. And internally, I was just, I mean, I could be dramatic and say dying inside, but I just knew it wasn't right. So
Well,
I blew up my life.
I
Oh,
want
go
to
ahead.
just, yeah, I want to just pause and then keep going, but because
Yeah.
this is in the work I do and in the audience of the listeners, primarily women, but men as well. And I
Yeah.
want to open this up to anyone who's experienced that overemphasis on the drive, and myself included, overemphasis on what we can get into definitions, but the masculine, the structure, the leading, the initiator,
Yeah.
to the detriment of maybe withering, maybe not dying, but withering that impulse as the feminine to be in a receptive and a creative and be intuitive.
Yes.
And so this is relatable. That's why I'm pausing. This is very much a lot of what happened for me being a creative too.
Hmm.
All my business was started from the creative spark and the energy. And then before I knew it, I found myself also wearing the energetic of the initiator, the doer, the structure, the systems, the running
Right.
business part. So, and all that is great. We need that. But once those are in place, to rest into being a more feminine or more balanced is something a lot of people are craving. Now, in your case, because I know your story, you did something pretty dramatic, like a lot ended for you. You ended one life and one way of
Yeah.
being. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I mean, and it was a brave move because I had a 20 plus long year career, a successful business. I was living in New York City for 16 years, and I did try with my business to pivot a bit and say like, look guys, I've been doing this yoga stuff. You've got thousands of hours of training. You've got hundreds of different talks. Like, I have actually said all I need to say. I'd like to talk about this now. And that audience just didn't want to hear it. They were so used to me showing up in a certain way that I wasn't allowed to pivot. So I did sell that business. I divorced the husband and I moved out of New York City to LA. And I just did it all as a leap of faith. And one of the things that I did and that I actually want to kind of speak of in terms of what you shared is I was committed to never doing things that way again. Right. I still, as a feminine woman,
So,
have, go ahead.
yeah, no, so important, the commitment.
Yeah.
It starts right here. We get very honest with ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I knew what burnt me out. I knew it didn't serve me. I knew the sweet spot of running a business that I could actually stay authentic in. I knew that I never wanted to be on social media again. I knew that I wanted to build a business that allowed me the creativity to stay in my zone of genius so that I didn't shift into the masculine. And I almost wanted to prove to the world that building a truly feminine business is possible, that it doesn't require us to chase after in that masculine model or to grow, 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 or pursue, pursue, pursue. That in a feminine business model, we can actually stay sovereign because that's what we do as queens. We stand on our own 2 feet. We have our own patch of grass that we rule, and we provide provide that receptivity for the world to come to us. And for the feminine, receptivity is receiving abundance, it's receiving prosperity, it's receiving appropriate support. And that is actually the most powerful and successful way to run a feminine business. And so that's what I'm committed to doing. And I also have the great privilege of working with women one on one to help them build their sovereign and successful feminine businesses.
Mm, love that. Yeah, very much the transformation and the journey I am on,
Yeah.
and the shift. And in my case, I have to say that as I have pivoted, it was really 3 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
went on sabbatical, and I ended a relationship, and I just completely shifted gears. So I had a
Yeah.
pretty
Good for you.
abrupt, yeah. And receiving became my way into feminine. It
Yeah.
had been a while, because I think a lot of us are doing this, and a lot of single women who come to me are saying, I feel like I carry so much of the feminine energy. Well,
Yeah.
and women in relationships feel that. And honestly, probably a lot of men feel it too, just the overwhelm of carrying the lead and
Yes.
the drive.
Yes.
So yeah, so in my case, I just somehow tapped into, as I did some tantric studies too, but
Nice.
how receiving could be my way to get familiar with the mystery and the intuition and the softness and the subtleness and the beauty and the radiance and the pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
and even the worth. So that was a key word for me. And I know that's one of your emphasis when you talk about the feminine energy, you talk about
Yeah.
the receptivity. You also, and we also talk about emotional depth.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we could just kind of like rest into emotional depth as a feminine frequency. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely. With the receiving piece too, just to quickly name,
yeah,
most women in this culture are not trained to receive. We're trained to overgive. And we're trained to be valued based on how much we overgive. So the idea to downshift into a receptive energy almost feels like a certain kind of death for many women, and it can be very dysregulating for their nervous system because we're so regulated around overgiving and burnout and overwhelm that when we get into receptivity, it feels like we're doing something wrong. And there's also this fear that usually crops up that if we're not overgiving, we'll be discarded, we won't be needed. And the opposite couldn't be more true. That when we stay in our receptivity, the universe hates a vacuum. So when we provide that vacuum and we hold that receptivity space, those around us who love us and want to support us will rush into that space, and it will give them purpose. It will give them clarity. It will allow them to participate with us. And that is a beautiful balance between masculine and feminine. So I would just want to give a little comfort around anyone who's like, receptivity, I don't even know where to begin. Look, just begin. And then that emotional depth piece.
oh gosh, I have to keep going on receptivity for a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
We'll get to emotional depth.
We'll pin it.
Um, well, I want to say that it does attract. It
Mm-hmm.
does attract. It's a radiant
Yes.
when we're willing. So, I mean, little practices for me were like my senses. That's where I started. Like, can I receive air on my skin and really feel it? When I eat, can I just taste that and
Mm.
receive? When someone gives me a compliment,
Yeah, wow.
take it in.
Yeah.
Can I receive pleasure? Can I
Uh,
receive support? Can I ask for it? You know, just like it became
baby
a
steps.
big practice. Can I just
Yeah.
go out barefoot on the grass and receive the earth's love? So I want to also say for me, Alanna, and this has really made a big difference in my business for sure. Like
Mm-hmm.
just being receptive to the people who are looking for what I have to offer. They are going to find me. I'm going to show up and be visible, but it's not a
Yeah.
chase. It's more of a radiance.
Yeah.
And then attracting the man that I recently married,
Woohoo! Congratulations.
I can tell you it was receiving. I
Yeah.
just had I knew that I was going to end up in, like you, another cycle of being more the masculine in a relationship. And I really wanted an integrated man who knew
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
we could meet each other and we could grow up together in
Yeah.
both qualities. So yeah, that willingness to be able to receive. And then boy, he came and he was a giver,
Oh,
right?
I love that.
Have to
That's
keep
awesome.
practicing.
And I
So,
hope that the women listening are inspired by that because there are good men out there. None of the
oh,
work that I
yes,
do, it affirms that. I love the masculine. There are really wonderful men doing great work, and they will only find us when we are in our feminine receptivity. Because if we are wearing too much masculine armor, the feminine is attracted to that. Right. So, like me, I ended up marrying a person in a male body who was very much in the feminine because I wore so much masculine armor. So it's a bit of a chicken or the egg. But ladies listening, if you want a strong, masculine, capable partner, it is kind of a universe requirement to be in your feminine receptivity so that he will find you.
absolutely. And we'll hopefully get to this and a healthy feminine,
Oh, yeah.
healthy masculine. So I
Yeah.
know you talk about the young and the distorted, and I want to share more with you
Yeah.
about that too. But yeah, so then we attract a mature and a
Hmm.
healthy masculine that can hold space for us and loves to provide.
Yep.
And I made it a commitment for myself that I also know how to be the healthy masculine in my own life
Sure.
in all the beautiful ways that I love the masculine and I love the masculine in me because I learned how to create safety for myself and how to adore myself. So of course I attracted a man who has a very evolved feminine as well as masculine.
Nice.
And that's really fun for us. And yeah, I keep softening and receiving, which maybe that brings us to emotional depth because I will say that being with a really healthy masculine integrated man has opened me up to feel.
Hmm.
There's something about being in a receptive state
Yeah.
as a woman, where there's access to such depth of emotion. So, talk to me about what do you perceive or see in emotional depth as a power? Because you talk about reclaiming feminine power.
Oh, I sure do, girl. Well, the good news is that it has always been there for you. Those of us who identify as feminine women, it's already inbuilt. There's nothing like you don't have to go out and get it. You may just need to tune in more deeply to it. And like having a conversation with a friend, the more that you tune in, the stronger that internal conversation will become. And the more powerfully you'll be attuned to your emotional depth and your intuition, really. One of the things that I think is a really helpful way to think about emotional depth and intuition is that they really, for the feminine, are the counterpart to the masculine qualities of logic and reason. Now, it's not, as you've mentioned, all of us as human beings have both masculine and feminine within us. But each of us as individuals will tend to lean toward one polarity more fully than another. We can access the other one anytime. We just don't want to wear it for too long so that it becomes a heavy coat of armor or inauthentic. Okay. However, our dominant culture prizes masculine values, and I would say to a large extent, distorted masculine values over the feminine. And our dominant culture has repressed and devalued the feminine so much that we as women have even bought into that. Not to our, it's not a fault, it's just improper training. No one has really let us know that the things that we are so powerful and valuable. So we've either forgotten or we've never let them out. So, as women, we've been trained to diminish the power of our emotional depth and intuition in favor of our own rational thinking or logic. Or if we have emotion and intuition and we're brave enough to voice it, we're often dismissed by the masculine around us saying, oh, you're just acting crazy. Oh, that doesn't make sense. So, what I want to do is reframe that both masculine and feminine are rich and empowering and equal. It's not a hierarchy. Both of their strengths are incredibly vital for this world and for relationship. One is not better than the other. The decision making function of the feminine is not logic and reason, it is emotional depth and intuition. And that is just as valid and correct as logic and reason. So when we get into relationship, either with ourselves internally or with a masculine partner as a feminine woman, what we are looking for is that when we tap into our intuition or have an emotional reaction to something, we want to, number one, be validated in that it is just as true and real as anything else. And then rather than second guess, dismiss, or be called crazy, that logic and reason doesn't override the decision making of that intuitive or emotional hit, but finds a way to support it, fix it, help, align with it. So we want the masculine essentially to cherish the feminine. And the way that I define that is cherishing. I love this definition. The masculine cherishes the feminine when he never leaves her alone in her pain without finding a solution. And that doesn't mean being Mr. Fix It. That means listening to her pain first. And through her voicing her pain, finding solutions that actually make her feel as if that's going to be a solution, as if it's going to be better. So I think that's kind of a helpful framework for allowing the feminine woman to feel more empowered with her logic and intuition. Because look, I think as a woman, anybody listening, you, me, we all know that anytime we've ever second guessed our intuition or not followed it, it will not and has not ever worked to our benefit.
Yeah, Lana, I just in my own consciousness, I can say that I've learned to really listen, you know,
Good. Yeah.
through challenges and of course the study of intuition.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to, for the Shift Network, host a summit and interview all of these intuitives, and then also it's a passion of mine.
That's awesome.
I have a course on my website around growing intuition.
Yeah.
Um, it's a study, it's a practice. And when we really observe, I even recommend, and a lot of intuitives recommend, have an intuition journal.
Mm,
This is just a practical way to cultivate,
for
right?
sure. Yeah.
And by the way, when we're receptive, we're receptive to universal insight. We're
Yeah.
receptive in our emotions to the heart, which has an intelligence that guides us. But in my own consciousness, as I'm living life and trusting just trusting the hunch and following the visions and the images and the symbology that's guiding me intuitively,
Yeah.
then I get to use the masculine part of me that is the solution one.
Yeah. To
Right?
execute.
Right, to
Yeah.
execute.
Yep.
But the initial, ooh, here's my insight of the direction to go, be it
Yes.
career, family, community, buying a home, then the masculine in ourselves can come
Mm-hmm.
in, or masculine support
Yep.
in the form of men or women, but it's coming in and it's the part that's doing it. And
100%.
yeah, the how, the
The
time.
how. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. What's one of your personal practices? I'm just like the life of Alanna today. So because you made the commitment to yourself, okay, I'm going to do this business
Yeah.
as a real energetic feminine frequency.
Yep.
How are you doing on that commitment, and what's supporting you in maintaining that?
I think like anything, I mean, look, I blew everything up and made this commitment to shift. And it's not overnight. I mean, it's a practice for me too. It's a practice for all of us. And, while I've done a lot of study and research and have written a book and created a community and a podcast and a whole business around this, I'm letting, I guess, life, the process teach me a little bit. And I'm not being as rigid as I once would have been around what I think should happen or what I think needs to happen. I'm committing to calling in a lot more help and support than I did initially when I first built my business the first time. So that's been really essential. And I'm committing to not second guessing myself.
Hmm.
I have a lot of years behind me of wearing that heavy masculine armor. and making more logical, rational decisions that I think, the world would have wanted me to make. Yes, you should keep growing. Yes, you should scale. Yes, you should hire more people. Yes, you should create more. Yes, you should stay up later. Yes, you should say yes to all the things. But what I'm realizing is that the favorite word of the masculine is yes, and the word of the feminine is no. So I'm learning every day what to say no to, when to stop, when to preserve my energy. I mean, I have a whole chapter in the book about the fact that women are not the bottomless well. So I'm trying to not be the bottomless well and lead by example. And it is fits and starts every day, sure. I have missteps, of course. As far as a practice goes, I think that the most basic and simple one is this intuitive empowerment or this emotional depth kind of reattunement. And the way that I practice it and the way that I teach it to my clients, my students, even my podcast listeners is simply that, if you wanted to do a practice around it, you could close your eyes and think about a moment where you had a decision that felt like pressure, or you had something that you felt like you needed to do, or someone was asking something of you, or a moment of overgiving. And just noticing in your body how that felt, because we as feminine women are so embodied. We're so embodied, we're so experiential. So inevitably a woman is going to feel it as like I feel it as pressure or heaviness in my chest and a tightness in my throat. And that is my intuition saying no. That's it. And then I think to a time where I made a really clear decision that I know is the right decision, that was intuitively empowered. And I feel into that. And what does that feel like in my body? It's your clear yes and your clear no. So every day I'm doing my best to follow always my clear yes and my clear no.
Yeah, yeah. I had a different shirt on earlier today. And I was like, this isn't a wow. I just, because one of my commitments is I'm going for the wows, but it's
Yeah.
like you, it's like, then all of a sudden I put on my light blue. I felt
Yep.
more soft. It's really relaxed. It's like, this is my wow today. I
Yeah.
mean, that's simple, but then in what I'm hearing you say, and I want to emphasize, then in each choice, then in each moment, tuning into the body,
Yeah.
the receptive body that is giving us tools and tones and indicators of the direction to go. So the feminine is very mysterious.
Oh, yeah.
It's the dark in the yin yang. It's the dark. It's the moon. It's going to be more of the not knowing,
It's,
but it is trusting that.
it's the
And
unconscious.
yes, there we go. And so when you talked about one of your practices is not controlling or directing, but actually listening, watching, letting life guide,
Yeah.
it brought up something that you mentioned in your podcast, you have it in your book, and it's a really essential key. And it is trusting that life is for us, that really
Yeah.
brings out the feminine. It's a fundamental aspect of living life from the feminine. So
It is.
you talk about it in many ways. Let's riff on it a little bit because it's actually the first wisdom in my book
Oh, nice.
is trust and trusting that life is for us. Einstein said the most important decision we make is whether we believe we live in a hostile or a friendly universe. So
Yeah.
how empowering to be in a place of trust. What's your experience of trusting more, and how has that changed you and maybe even matured your feminine?
So I name it as one of the four keys. So,
Mhm.
my whole book is premised on the fact that women deserve to be satisfied. And satisfaction is a feeling, and it's a holistic experience, and it encompasses every part of our life. And we're going to know we're satisfied not because of a bottom line or numbers or commas in the bank, but because of the way that we wake up every morning, feel about ourselves and our world, and participate in it. That's our measure of, success, is really satisfaction. But a feminine woman really can't even get to that place of satisfaction unless these four keys are established. And one of them is trust. And the way that I define it is from both perspectives, like as the feminine, and then also either as your own internal masculine or the externalized masculine. So, trust for the feminine is always trusting your intuition and your emotional responses, never second guessing them. That's it. If you just start there, if you know that what's inside of you is alive and correct for you, you never second guess it and you live your life that way, and you'll always know you have your own back. From the masculine perspective, and again, whether it's externalized or your own internal masculine, it's that you trust that the masculine is making decisions for your highest good on your behalf, right? So if you think about it in partnership, that would require your masculine partner, no matter where he is, whether you're with him or not, that whatever he's doing, he's always got your best interest in mind. He's always thinking, okay, what's going to move the two of us forward? What's going to be the best for both of us always? Let me always behave and act that way. So, let's say he gets a text message from a long lost girlfriend. It just, the pop up. It's not his fault. It just happens. He's going to react or do with that information whatever it is that you would feel most comfortable about. That's trust. So we want to trust ourselves, our intuition and emotion, and we want to trust those around us to always have our back. And when we're not in that situation, it's really compressing for the feminine. If we can't move around the world knowing that other people have our best interest at heart, then we either need to move around the world in a different way or we need to move around a different world. And I'm a big fan of heavy curation. Like if you're in a relationship that doesn't have this level of trust, either shift the energy or exit. If you're in a familial situation that doesn't have this energy of trust, well, maybe we don't spend 2 days at home over the holidays. Maybe we just show up for dinner, right? We heavily curate the ways in which that we show up in the world so we can make sure we've got the foundation we need to always be authentic and true to ourselves.
And what I find is the more that we trust ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and we get very used to that in our own life and in our own way of being. So like I've cultivated this, and I recommend we all cultivate that we have our own best interest at heart.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And of course, I know
Yeah.
you know this. I'm just reiterating, and the little child in us, right? The little girl or boy that like really got hurt and wasn't safe and
Mm-hmm.
couldn't trust the
Mm-hmm.
environment that they grew up in, and to some degree in this society, I think all of us have not felt like we could trust others.
Yeah.
But now we get to reparent ourselves. We get to trust that we're going to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think my point is the more that I cultivate that in myself, when it's not happening outside of me, it just isn't a vibrational match.
For sure. And it's easier to recognize too.
Absolutely.
You
There
know?
you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, like, look, I'm a human woman. You're a human woman. If we dig into our past and share enough stories, we're both going to come up with a story about a relationship that we had where we had the rose-colored glasses on, didn't see the signs, and then 3 months, 3 years, 30 years later, finally woke up and realized, wow, not only did the partner abandon me, I also abandoned myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So the more we, I think about, I love that you use the word reparenting because in psychology, that's exactly what it is. We're all dealing with our internal wounded child, and that is the unconscious element for all of us. And, you know, that's name it what you want, but that is a big part of your intuition. And if the little girl inside you, and I'm speaking to the feminine women listening, right? If your little girl inside of you is tired, she's tired, then the masculine part of you needs to let her rest and stop overgiving, overworking, overfunctioning and wearing that masculine armor. You're betraying yourself, you're abandoning yourself in that way, and that's not an admonishment. It's just a statement like there's such a huge part of you that needs to live and thrive and you are missing it. If we keep up with this heavy masculine armor and this burden that has been thrust on us by a world that just wasn't built for us, it wasn't built with us in mind.
Yeah. Well, thank goodness, I believe. Thank goddess, I believe. The world is changing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really, really feel it. My world is changing, the
Yep.
reflection for sure. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the evolution or the maturity of the masculine,
Okay.
because there's still, in my opinion, or what I'm noticing is there's just like not a lot of knowledge about what is healthy masculine, because we have so many models of more rule making, forceful,
Hmm.
punishing, dominant energies of the masculine.
Okay.
So I wanted to just, the false authority versus the maturity that is so sovereign in their knowing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just talk about a really mature masculine energy. Let's start there. I would love to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. Well, I do want to just name in my research for this book, what I found actually is that there are more men doing men's work in a codified, unified way, and they've been doing it for longer. Women, I don't know. I have theories about why women haven't really like named this as a structure. A lot of women obviously engage in the work, engage in self-help, but not necessarily in a way that they name it as this is my feminine work and I'm creating a more healthy feminine element for myself.
I've
And
been, I've heard you say that before, and
yeah,
I've been seeing, I hear you. I mean, I'm
yeah,
seeing evidence of so many women talking about and creating feminine power
good.
movements, the art of feminine presence, or anyway, so maybe less books. I don't know. I'm glad you wrote the book, by the way, because I want to just
Thanks.
pause, little commercial break
Yeah.
too, and I know you wrote it somewhat in response to the way of the
Superior man.
superior man,
Uh-huh.
David Data, right? But the
Yeah.
way of the satisfied women, this is a really cool, like it's going to become, or it is in the becoming of just a solid foundation for any women who want to really come into feminine
Boy,
understanding
I hope so.
and for the men that love women. I mean,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a great book. It's and of course I've said this a couple times, and so have you. There's a lot in here that men can relate to, the way of the
Yes.
satisfied person.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so there is a lot of men who are talking about how to evolve their masculine.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
rap a little bit about it.
So I named the four keys as the foundation for
Mhm.
satisfaction for any women. We talked about trust. There is safety, security, and being cherished by the masculine. Those are the four keys. So every feminine woman needs those four keys at the foundation. And the masculine counterpart to those things, in my mind, are the strongest, most healthy values of the masculine. I mean, there's a lot of values for both masculine and feminine. So, for the feminine to feel a sense of safety, the masculine needs to step into his healthy element of protection, emotional protection, physical protection, right? Holding space, being that solid mooring in the great stormy sea that we all experience as women because we fluctuate. This is our bodies, this is our hormones, this is our emotions, it's who we are. We are wild, we are free, we are untamable, we are loud, we are unpredictable. And that protection of the masculine is like, let me hold that baby. I got you. Okay. Another really powerful, healthy masculine trait is the juxtaposition of security. So, old school is like just the money piece, but it's providership from the masculine. Baby, let me provide you with whatever makes you feel secure, whatever makes you feel like you've got your needs met. So, as a woman, if you need to have a certain amount of money in the bank, whether it's the both of you making it, him making it arriving out of nowhere, it is just provided. Whether it's providing an emotional, safe home for you, whether it's providing healthy, nourishing meals for you, whatever it is that's going to make you feel secure, the masculine provides. Both I find providership and protection kind of are a very elevated energy of generosity. Healthy masculine is generous, right? Healthy feminine is receptive. It's that thank you, that appreciation, that taking in, that enjoyment, that embodied pleasure, right? The whole world feels pleasure through the female body. So when the masculine is healthy and generous with us, baby, what do you need? What can I do for you today? What can I offer you? How can I make your day easier? When we wake up to a tiny little bud of a flower that he got on his morning run for us and it makes our day brighter, that's masculine generosity. And when we feel that pleasure, it feels like sparks, the life force energy that is ours coming through our body and it radiates out, and they then receive the pleasure of that. Lastly, it's the cherishing. A healthy masculine cherishes the feminine, and I defined that earlier as never leaving her alone in her pain without finding a solution that feels good to her. Look, if we can attune those amazing men with their big, big hearts to those, I mean, masculine and feminine both are thriving.
The generosity piece,
Mm-hmm.
providership, but
Yeah.
the warm-heartedness of a masculine. And
Yeah.
I know your background also in yoga would include Shakti and Shiva.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
let's talk about those representations of,
Ooh, we're going to get mythological, girl. I love it.
well, yeah, because I know that that's helped me a lot.
Sure.
Getting really in touch with the Shiva, the holding of presence, the
Yep.
spaciousness
Stillness.
and stillness.
Yeah.
That's the healthy masculine. We don't
Yes.
often think of it that way, and that is one of the ways that my man in his masculine really provides for me,
I love that.
is a heart that is open, a stillness.
Hmm.
Then
Presence.
I can self-facilitate, because I sometimes need to emote and
Yep.
speak and work it through to some sort of resolution. But the
Yeah.
permission, I feel very held.
Yeah.
Bhakti and Shiva, tell us about the mythology.
Yeah.
How does it play a part in what you write about and speak about today?
Yeah. So Shiva is, I said the word stillness, and I will also say presence. Healthy masculine presence is what allows the feminine to be, like to literally exist. So the way that it's told in the mythology of Shiva and Shakti, and I love this story, is that Shiva is completely still, right? He's in his meditation. Shiva loves his meditation. He can meditate for like 10,000 years on that mountaintop. Nobody's bothering him. And he doesn't need to do anything else. He's content, whatever. He's fine. Don't bother me. I'm good. He's sitting. He's got his eyes closed. But like sometimes the eyes flicker a little bit in meditation. So his eyes flicker, and off to the corner of his vision, he sees Shakti. Oh, she is radiant. And she is beautiful. And her eye out of her corner catches him and she goes, oh, and there's this attraction, right? Because they're opposites and opposites attract. And just the sight of him begins to make her move and awakens her and enlivens her. And it's through her dance. She starts dancing. Her hair's all over the place. And so many women love dancing. Again, we're embodied, right? We love our movement. Her skirt is swirling around her, and it calls him out of his slumber. And he stands and he looks at her, and it is simply by his gaze, his stillness and his gaze, that she swirls and twirls, and it is that energy that then creates the entire universe. Because the feminine is energy, the feminine is wild. Without the masculine stillness, without the masculine mooring post, without the masculine presence and container, there is no containment, right? She's out of control. And it's not that she needs to be controlled. This isn't a dominating experience. This is a very symbiotic, like, baby, dance for me. I've got you experience. And she's like, I get to dance? Let me just be free. Let me be this enlivened, embodied, energetic life force spirit that I am, and let you see me. And so that's Shiva Shakti.
I'm going to apply it to business for a moment.
Sure.
Because I'm thinking in my own business, right?
Yeah.
The Shiva masculine is like this still presence that the technology is working. We got
Yes.
systems, it's
Correct.
organized, even
Uh
have a
huh.
team,
Yep. Uh huh.
right? But that allows the flow and the twirl and the creativity and the
Yeah.
spontaneity to happen with the clients, with the groups, with the circles.
Exactly.
And then I was going to also apply it to for any women who are single, because I think that it's important to touch on this just because this question keeps coming my way. So let's, how can I, as a single woman, you mentioned it briefly, like go into that fluid dancing feminine when
Yeah.
I don't have that man in my life? And um, I thought I'd share a little from my experience, and then I'd like you to share some insights to answer that question too.
Sure.
for the single women, having just been there. And I only met my husband 2 years ago, and I already talked a little bit about the receiving and practicing receiving. What I didn't say is I actually really had to recreate my life before I
Mm,
met him and I left the other relationship. So I utilized my own masculine to set up as much structure in my home, safety in my finances, groundedness, everything to a point where it actually could hum.
nice.
Life could hum. And so then there was an intentional choice to,
Right.
to practice that feminine frequency and to to really give myself permission as a single woman to lean back and trust the universe. And
Yep.
so what would you want to say to a single woman who asks, like, how I'm so in my masculine, how can I make the shift?
First, I want to go back to the business piece because you
Okay.
identified something that I think is really important and so true. And I want to reflect it back to an earlier piece of our conversation where we're living in a time and a place where things are still weird. We're still in flux, but we have more power, agency, and opportunity than we've ever had before as women. And what you named is something really pivotal. So I do a lot of work one on one with women, coaching them into how to build their own sovereign business. And the
Mhm.
reason and the way that I can do that is because the systems are in place to take a hold of all of that masculine structure that's necessary so that we can stay in our zone of genius.
That's
When I
right.
started building my business 10 years ago, those systems weren't in place. They
Yeah,
didn't
the
even exist.
technology, even the automation.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah,
God. I had to patch 15 different programs together and then hold them myself with duct tape and baling wire to make them work. Now there are systems that can do it. And I do have a masculine business partner who is the Shiva of those systems where I can, work with my women to have him build the things out and then I stay with them in their zone of genius. So it's a really potent time for women to actually get their magic out there, the thing that is in them that they want to bring to life, that they want to make meaning of in the world, where they want to stand on their own patch of grass. Because for too long, women have been defined by what they do for others. Oh, I'm his wife. Oh, I work for them. Oh, I'm labeled by my career. It's time for us to be ourselves and to be sovereign in that. So I'm just big, like, yay, it's possible. It's finally possible. Ladies, let's do it. All right.
let's supercharge because this is a video. Let's just both
Woo!
affirm
We're
that.
infusing it with all of the
I
positive
love
energy.
that. I
We
love
have we have what we need for satisfaction on every level, and that is in our own career, that is in our own businesses, that is in our family, that is in our communities. It will take some work. We will have to continue to probably overdo the emotional labor a little bit, but everybody's been improperly trained. And now, the work of my book, the work of other women who are doing things like this, we're having some evidence and some structure of how to get it done. Now, the single lady. Let me talk to the single lady because this is not an easy conversation, Joy. I wish I had a buttoned up way to maintain singlehood and all of this. Now, and again, I wish I did, but the world wasn't built for us. This culture isn't built to value the feminine. It is a masculine world. And as a single woman in this culture, in this world, we have to carry a lot of the masculine for ourselves. Even as you mentioned, I had to create my own safety. I had to put my own structures in place. And for the truly feminine woman, that is just going to be exhausting. So even as a single woman, as much as you can, outsource that. Outsource that. Try to get it off of your plate in any way that you can. And I recognize and value, I can't tell you how much I value that we live in a time and a place where women can make their own decisions about whether they're single or not, about whether to marry or not, about whether to have family or not. In my family, my grandmother absolutely didn't have those decisions available. And my mom had limited access to those decisions. So the fact that I have those decisions is only one generation old. So thank goodness we have them. But the feminine woman, in times that she chooses to be single, let those be empowering times. Let those be times where you prove to yourself that life is possible, that you will be okay, that dependence is not necessary. But there will always be that awakening within you that partnership is probably what's next. We as humans are relational beings. The culture tells us DIY, do it yourself. The culture values the individual. My time, I was raised with the narrative that you're a woman, you don't need a man, you can do it all yourself. And then I did. And I did it for everybody else. So that's a narrative we can drop, you know? It is right and good and true to be relational, to be with other people. That's how we co-regulate. That's how humanity, our species, has survived all of this time is in partnership with other people. So in your times of being single, outsource what you can. Take care of what you can, let them be empowering times, and then be ready for the shift within you when you're ready to step into a partnership. Because then you can shift, as you mentioned, fully and intentionally into a partnership that holds you as healthfully as possible.
So much hope also in your words, just what you shared now, but also your book. I want to acknowledge you for that as well
Thank
before we
you.
close out, because it can be uplifting. This whole
Yes.
practice, this study, there's no blame. We all got together as a human species to where we are now,
Yeah.
and it's changing,
Yes.
and we can be models of that. And I mean, everyone listening, we all get to be part of this evolution, to be more integrated, to be more sovereign,
Hmm.
to grow up and mature in both the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about relationship, and that there is a natural co-regulation that is possible in that. And we are in relationship with life all the time, right?
We are. And,
Yeah.
principle of psychology that I always lean into is the fact that we are wounded in relationship and we are healed in relationship. And I know for myself, having traversed now at this point almost 3 decades of spirituality, psychology, the work, doing the work myself, participating in groups, whatever I was doing, there was a point I was single for many, many years. And, lying in beds with crystals and going to yoga retreats and leading yoga retreats myself and all of that. I remember looking at myself in my bedroom mirror and saying to myself, I had this epiphany, Alanna, you've taken yourself as far as you can go. You will need the mirror of another human in order to dig deeper and go farther in your own spiritual growth and evolution. Because we cannot be mirrors for ourselves, and there's nothing more triggering than an intimate partnership. And anyone who's done the work knows that it is in those triggers that we have the potential to rewrite our story, to retrain our synapses, to fire differently, to release the emotional pain of whatever we carry forward from our childhood. So I would say that relationship isn't just like optional, it's actually necessary, especially for those of us here in a time and a place where we are awakening to more than just the house, the 2.5 kids, the white picket fence, the car in the garage. We want more out of life, and now we can have it.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I have a series of videos interviewing people who recently found love, men and women. And I
Okay.
asked them about the sacred preparation, like from their own experience, what did they do internally and in their lives
Yeah,
prior to meeting the one? So anyway, for anyone who wants to, they're really inspiring,
that's
really
awesome.
different perspectives. And because I'm a researcher like you, I'm really curious. What is it? What are the elements that bring people together?
Yeah,
And of course, there's a lot of cooperative components, as Abraham would say, right? There's a lot
right.
of aspects that need to be orchestrated to come together
Yeah.
for that to happen. Oh, I knew we would have a good time. I sure enjoyed spending time with you, Alanna. Really. I have to ask you though, what's the horse? Tell me about the horse that you're with.
Oh, you mean my bolo tie to end all bolo ties?
Your
So
bolo tie.
I'm a bit of a country western girl and a cowgirl. I grew up on horseback throughout both Texas and Colorado, and I've always appreciated this kind of style. And as you named, you wore something that felt like it embodied who you are. I think of my wardrobe as I call it my reverse armor. That I wear it for the world in order for me to represent myself to the world in my most authentic way. And so, the horse is an element of sovereignty, but when I ride horses, which I've been doing all my life, I find it to be such an embodied feminine experience because a horse is an animal. It has its own consciousness. It's not a machine. Just because I want to go right and I do all of the cues to have it go right, it could go left, it could stop. So there has to be a real integration and a real softening. I can't force. right? I must be in my most embodied feminine in order for me to be with the horse and us to then move as one. And I feel that. I love that. It was an experience that I think gave me some early training for this. It reflects the mythology of Ariadne and the Minotaur, which I write about in my book, that, we can't force the unconscious. We can't force our nature. We can't force intuition. We have to be one with it. We have to be copacetic with it. And so when I saw this beautiful bolo, it's vintage, I was like, oh, I've got to have it. So yeah, that's the horse.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. What a great. I love getting to know you.
You too, Joy. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, this is great. And we'll put in the description and, the show notes and everything, all the links to your podcast, your book, your website, your
Yeah,
community,
perfect.
so that more people can really receive this articulate communication. It's not just a communication, it's a transmission and it's an invitation for
And
transmission.
hopefully an activation. Let's get moving, ladies.
Let's do this. Okay. So love on the journey. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alanna.
Thank you too, Joy.